Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to oneBURGH and oneBURGH.com on the Facebook page, on the YouTube channel, and of course the .com. I'm Brian Carruthers. Over Scott Blasey's head is Ed Troop. Welcome to oneBURGH oneWEEK, where we look back on what's happened in Pittsburgh this week. How you doing, Ed?
Good morning, Brian. How are you?
I'm good, my man. Well, let's just say hello to Scott Blasey as well. Scott, thanks for joining us today.
Good morning, Brian and Ed. Thanks for having me.
So this is the Scott Blasey wake-up look. Everyone's been wanting to know.
Looks good, man.
Got my Nike hoodie, and
yeah, this is what rock and roll looks like.
Yeah, right.
Well, thanks for joining us, man. And let's get right out of the gate to say the new, and I was talking to Ed a second ago, the new LP, even though EP, LP, album, what are we calling three songs placed in the internet today?
Well, it's funny, Brian, that you mentioned this. I was thinking about it the other day. You know, the term EP comes from, way back in 60s and 70s when, the LP was long playing album. It was a full album,
Okay.
And EP became, sort of the euphemism for extended play, which was generally a shorter, 3 songs, 4 songs, that kind of thing. But when you think about it, it really needs to be reversed, because extended play sort of implies that it's longer than a long playing album. But EP, is sort of an old term for just a handful of songs. I don't know if it still applies here in the digital age or not, but that's what I used.
Well, if it matters to you, my daughter Ellie, who's 15, who was at your show at Hard Rock at Christmas and loved it. I said, hey, we have something in common, because she'll wake me up and say, Taylor Swift did something online today. And I'll go, oh, what was it? So on Monday, I said, hey, Scott Blasey did something online today. And she goes, nice. What? I go, he dropped a new EP. And she's like, what?
I dropped a new EP, man. Yeah,
dropped the new EP. I stumbled all over myself. But yeah, congratulations. 3 the hard way. You were lucky to not be on. Ed has been whistling Here and Now, waiting for you to come on. One of the worst versions of a cover of your new song.
It wasn't as good as your version of it, Scott. I can promise you that. So I won't embarrass myself or do any injustice to you, my friend.
Well, thanks, Ed. I'm sure your version was just fine. Here and Now is one of my favorites. Well, I love them all 3. It's like trying to pick which child you like the best. I love them all. But Here and Now is really special. It's I sort of wrote it as a love letter to my wife about 15 years ago. We moved back to Western Pennsylvania from Dallas, Texas, and it's just a real kind of a jazzy ode to love.
Yeah, it's really cool. Well, and you mentioned your wife in that story. You need to get that, Scott. Is someone calling?
No, I just took my daughter in a little late from school, and the school is calling. I apologize for the.
That's okay. That's great. Yeah, but what's funny on Here and Now is, and that's song 1 on the new EP, the new drop. You mentioned Sgt. Pepper, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. This is about Scott's wife. But then, man, you take us for a loop. Now you mentioned Bobby Darin, and I was like, wait a second, is this about his parents?
Well,
or are you guys Bobby Darin fans?
Both. My dad was a huge Bobby Darin fan. He's World War II generation, loved big band stuff and crooners like Bobby Darin and Frank Sinatra. He was a music lover. He really enjoyed all kinds of stuff, loved R&B. I grew up hearing Bill Withers and Gladys Knight and the aforementioned Mr. Darin. Yeah. And, Mac the Knife was a big song I used to hear around the house, and Beyond the Sea. And then, when Denise and I started dating when we were, younger, I played Mac the Knife in the car one day, and she was singing along to it. I was like, oh, I can marry this girl. So, and really the vibe of that song, that sort of jazzy finger snapping vibe is very Bobby Darin.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Then you go song 2, which has like kind of this Jerry Lee Lewis, Great Balls of Fire, really cool guitar. You're going high octave, very exciting song.
Yeah. it's a very schizophrenic EP. I mean, it really jumps from one genre to another.
Yeah.
Rockin' Chair came about. I was driving home one day and I heard Betty Lou's Getting Out Tonight by Bob Seger, and I thought, man, what a
Wow.
fun, what a fun, upbeat, just kind of blues rock, boogie woogie piano song. And I just walked right into the basement here where I am, and I picked up my guitar and I wrote Rockin' Chair about an older man trying to stay young, and a lot of fun. Wrote that with a good buddy of mine, a drummer and producer, Matt Muckle, who I hung out with in bands in the 90s. And Matt put together a real all-star cast of Pittsburgh musicians with Ford Thurston and Rocky Lamond and Vinnie Q and Joe Monroe. And we did it at a studio in Dormont, and it just love the way that sounds. So yeah, totally different going from here and now to Rockin' Chair.
Yeah, Schizo definitely would be a feel for the three songs, because the last one has like that traditional Clark's feel to it, right? Where everything kind of slows back down. It sounds a little more classic, you guys.
Yeah, it's definitely a little more in line with what people would associate with what I do with the Clarks. That's an interesting story too. A filmmaker friend of mine named Ted Haynes has a production company called Confluence Productions, and he's a Western Pennsylvania guy, lives down in Florida, and he was making a documentary about a guy who rescues people from cults. It was really interesting, and he messaged me one day. He said, "Hey man, I would love for you to write a song to go over the end credits." And so I sat down and started writing this song. And the first line is, "I'm coming to find you," and it just kind of progressed from there. And another buddy of mine, musician, really talented multi-instrumentalist named Walter Eno, I approached Walter. I said, "Can you?" I sent him a demo, basically just recorded the song on the phone and sent it to him. And I said, just build a song around it and give it sort of a 90s, grunge light sort of vibe, maybe Alice in Chains, Jar of Flies feel.
Mm-hmm.
And he did just that, and then came over to my house here, and we cut the vocals here in the basement, and just love the result.
It was really cool. Really cool.
Hey Scott, had a chance to listen this morning a little bit while I was on the treadmill, so you got me through my workout, which I appreciate. And then I hit some deep cuts of the Clark stuff too while I was at it with you early this morning. But hey, talk about the album cover right there. We got it up there in the corner. Any special meaning to it or anything going on there?
Well, the album cover came about in a couple of ways. I have a good buddy. His name's Tony Kazinko, a really talented photographer. Has a company called Digital Noise Photography. And, I knew I was going to be working on this EP. So last fall, the band was playing at the Palace Theater in Greensburg. And there's some really cool murals painted on buildings there. And so Tony and I did some shots and really loved the one photograph, the one that you're, showing. And, we did a little mock-up of an album cover, and with the mural, original mural on it. And I sent it to our management, and my manager said, "Hey, I love the photo of you, but can we send this to a graphic designer and see what they can come up with?" So this guy named Patrick McFerrin in Los Angeles has a company called Interior State, and makes videos, AI generated videos, which he did for these songs as well. But
cool.
He came up with this EP cover and basically just took the photograph and he put this background on it, which I really loved. It's just sort of that the wall and then the sky behind it. So it came about in two different parts. Tony took the photograph, but then Patrick sort of mocked it up with that and did the font, the style of the lettering and stuff. And just as soon as I saw the design, I was like, oh, that's really cool. So the background was not, an actual background when the photography was done.
Yeah, it's a great look, man. It's a good cover for your EP.
Yes.
Good EP cover. Scott, let me circle back quickly. I know you don't have all morning. Your show at the Hard Rock, right, Christmas time, your one-man show. I got to tell you, man, bravo. Ed, you'll appreciate this. I did give Scott the one-man standing ovation, and my daughter and my friend were like, "Sit down. You're too big. You're blocking everything." But dude, absolutely fantastic. And I think we talked about this on oneBURGH right after is, dude, this Springsteen one-man show story of Pittsburgh through your songs.
Yeah.
Dude, what's the holdup on this? This must happen.
Let's go. Let's go.
It has to happen.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it, man. I'm gonna get we're gonna film a couple shows and put it together and do a little behind the music.
Well, dude, it was absolutely beautiful, man. Your storytelling was great.
Thank you.
Yep.
Storytelling was absolutely perfect, and the music was tied in perfect. And the one part that was interesting, and everyone has different perspectives during shows, right? You have the best being on the stage, of course, but I had this seat where I didn't want to sit because it was too close to you. I felt like I was like looking up at you the whole time. Like,
you were right up there, man.
It was too close. But Ed, you'll appreciate this, man. Scott has these like fans that will like murder people for him. They're in love with him. I think they bring guns to the show to protect Scott. And so during one of his songs, and it's killing it, right? And I look over and like, you ever see like that meme of like 30 deer in the woods staring at you and not blinking?
Right.
It was that, but it was a table of like 40 beautiful women, and they were just staring, no blinking, mouth kind of like this. And I thought, are they going to kill? Are they here to get me? Like, am I too close to Mr. Blasey? Are they coming for me? It was great.
It sounds like Scott has like a similar Taylor Swift following that people will go after anybody who tries to damage Scott. So we'll be on good behavior here.
Lord, don't. And then there was a table of two women who were absolutely great, and we talked to them the whole night. And they go, "Oh, we've seen Scott 48 times this year." Like, it's like, oh.
They're very passionate fans. It's not quite as large of a fan base, but the intensity is certainly similar. I'm just
it was really cool.
So lucky, so fortunate to have those kind of fans and the shows. I really appreciate your generous comments about the show. Brian, I've been what I referenced earlier. We moved back. Denise and I moved back to PA about 15 years ago. And I started doing these solo shows. Prior to that, it really was just band shows, and we had done some acoustic shows with the other guys in the band. But I started playing solo shows, and I realized pretty quickly, I said to myself, I need to do something beyond just sitting up here and playing songs. I'm not the best guitar player in the world. I'm not going to dazzle people with my guitar skills. I need to start, letting people in here a little bit. I need to talk about the songs, where the songs come from. And that just sort of evolved into talking a little bit about, where I come from. I talk about my mother and my father. I talk about my family. So, it really just kind of evolved over time. And just in the last couple of years, I've just gotten great feedback from people, the storytelling, and I've just become really comfortable with it. And I just love doing it. I love talking about my family, about my mom and dad, and my upbringing, and then like you said, I sort of tie it in with Pittsburgh history and the band's history. We've been together for over 35 years, so sort of reference places and people that have come before, and a lot of Pittsburghers can relate to.
Yeah, it was really nicely tied together, man. And
thank you.
Was Donnie Iris with us that night? Did he show up for that show, or was that a Donnie lookalike?
I think it was a Donnie lookalike. However, Donnie, and this is funny too. I was born in '64, so in 1980, when Aaliyah came out and that album Back on the Streets hit, I was 16 years old. I was a senior in high school, and Donnie Iris was the king. He was right up there for me with Tom Petty and AC/DC and Prince, and I had no point of reference, that he was from Elwood City or didn't really, know about his Pennsylvania roots. And so I worshiped him. I mean, I just love that album. I love that song, Aaliyah. And so I grew up loving Donnie Iris, and then, come to realize that he's a Pennsylvania, he's a Pittsburgh guy, and became friends with him over the years, sang backgrounds with him, and just, he's just the sweetest guy in the world. I love him to death. And he's he's a personal friend of mine. And he'll text me every once in a while, and he'll say, "Hey man, I'm coming to your show tonight," and I look at my text, and my 16-year-old self is still blown away by the fact that Donnie Iris is my friend and is coming to my show.
Yeah, and you're going to open for them at Robert Morris, right? With the return of Donnie.
That's right. The luck of the Iris.
And Donnie just had a big birthday, right?
Donnie, yes, 81. This will be celebrating his 81st birthday, and we did this last year for his 80th birthday, and then he kind of took a little hiatus. He was dealing with some medical issues, and but he's back, and I saw him not too long ago at a Penguin game, hung out with him a little bit, and he looks great, and he's ready to get back on stage, and I'm just so happy that the Clarks are opening up for Donnie Iris and the Cruisers, UPMC Events Center here in March.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to that's right in my backyard. I heard you when my house is right like in Moon Park, so we heard you guys on 4th of July. You shook our windows, and now you'll be at Robert Morris. So looking forward to it.
Great.
Looking forward to it. Well, Scott, good luck with the EP, man. The drop, the surprise music, and by the way, the kids call it surprise music. You surprised us.
I had no idea. I asked my manager. I was like, "Should we?" A couple of weeks ago, I was like, "Should we tease this? That it's coming out?" He's like, "No." He said, "We'll just release it, and it'll be a real pleasant surprise for everybody." So, Brian, Ed, thank you guys for having me on. I really, really appreciate it. And real quick, by the way, for anybody interested, the EP3, The Hard Way, is available on all streaming platforms, whether you listen to Apple Music or Spotify or Tidal or Amazon Music, wherever you get your music these days.
All right, Scott Blasey, we'll put your tour schedule up as well so people know where you're going to be. You got a busy spring, don't you?
Yeah, man. The band's at it, doing some shows in and out of town, and a lot of solo shows tonight at 31 Sports Bar and Grill in Bridgeville, solo, and then tomorrow night at 565 Live in Bellevue. So come on out.
Oh, hell yeah. Okay.
Awesome.
Especially with this reigning endorsement. Let's go.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Scott, thanks so much.
Thanks, Scott.
My pleasure. See you soon.
All right, there he is, the great Scott Blasey. Thank you, my friend. What a way to start the show today, Ed.
Yeah, I know. Scott did awesome, man. It was so cool to talk to him about his new album and hear what he has to say. And just a really, really, exciting time to be in Pittsburgh local music, and he's a big part of that. You often hear people talk about the local music scene and in the last 20 to 30 years, and he's a real big part of that, man. Him, Donnie Iris, all those guys.
Yeah, of course, for sure. And let me put a plug in. I always worry when I talk to people that I like that it seems like I'm crushing on them. But I am legitimate. I'm a fan of Scott. I liked his show. I like his music. But if you want something that's really good, now the EP that we're talking about, of course, The Drop, very good. But his solo album called Traveling On, oh, that's an Ed Troop. That's an Ed Troop car album right there, man. Very good. It's a solo album. It's a great mix of like that Blasey voice mixed with a lot of like emotion, coming, going, meeting people. That's great stuff. Good. Traveling On's a great album, but I didn't want him to be like, and I feel like, because I'm big, like I take up a lot of the screen. Like I didn't want Blasey or people that we interview to be like, whoa, man, all right, this is just too much. I can't take this much in at 9 a.m.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
A little bit overwhelming, but it's easy to have a guy crush on Scott, right, man? I mean, not
of course.
And it's not even so much his music and his look. He's just a nice guy, to talk to. That was my first interaction with him. I know you've interacted a handful of times on the Incline show and some other things here recently.
Yeah. No, you just want people to be nice. Like, isn't that isn't that the missing like trait in people now that like you go, now they're very talented. Yes, of course. Very successful with this. Yep. But man, nice is very overrated.
Right. Yeah. 100%, man. 100%. Hey, so what else do we have going on here this morning?
Well, hey, we want to do a quick recap as we're looking in. I don't know what time it is. Did we lose a lot of time? But I know we want to get to a guy that you have a serious man crush on. Bill Hillgrove announced yesterday that he's stepping aside from the Steeler broadcast. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Billy Hillgrove retiring not this past week. Well, yesterday, just announced that the legendary Bill Hillgrove When I think back about growing up in the 80s, I often think about WTA and watching the news on the old antenna, not cable. And, back at least my household didn't have cable. And, the big part about where I grew up in the Mon Valley was the reception for WTA or nearby in the Keysport. So we were able to get Channel 4 like perfect each and every week. So I got to grow up on Bill Hillgrove doing the sports in the 80s, him and Stan Stavern both. And then, of course, they were on WTA. I played job in '94, took over for the legendary Jack Fleming, who was another monster in that position. Just a great play-by-play guy before Hillgrove. And, the last, 30-some years, we've been able to listen to for a long time, it was Hillgrove and Cope. Of course, Cope passing away and retiring a while back. Those guys are legendary, man, and this is just another step in us getting older and a new generation coming on, and it'll be interesting to see who replaces them, because that's going to be a hard job to fill.
Oh, no doubt. Do you want to hear my impression of Hillgrove?
What's that?
Do you want to hear my impression? You want to hear my impression of Hillgrove?
Yes, please do.
Okay. Mason Rudolph pulls back, throws it. He completes it to Santonio Holmes. No, that's Plexico Burrs. Scratch that. That's Hines Ward.
Oh, it's long enough, and it's good.
Oh, it's missed.
Right.
I love it when during that confusion time of Hillgrove, where it's pit players. That's Larry Fitzgerald. No, that's Plexico Burrs. I always enjoyed that, because how do you get these things right? I mean, and by the way, obviously it's a spoof on them. I think 95% of the time it was right. 5% of the time we're a little foggy, but it's radio.
Right. Exactly, man. Exactly. But he's a legend, and we're gonna miss him. And like I said, those are big shoes to fill. It's interesting to see who will take place. I know you commented on oneBURGH yesterday about Rob King. I think he's probably a pretty obvious choice. He's filled in for Hillgrove a few times. He's done the post-game show with Charlie Batch, and Rob's a real solid guy. So I would think that he's probably young enough to get in that spot. There were some comments on social media, like Pat McAfee, who I love Pat McAfee, but Pat McAfee's not a play-by-play guy. So, hard to think that Pat McAfee would take Bill Hillgrove's place to do a play-by-play. That would be interesting, right?
I wouldn't mind it. I think that the only thing with Rob King, and all praise to Rob King, all the deserving praise, whatever there is, he's vanilla. So I think Rob King will come in and replace somebody who has built personality over the years. And so, Hillgrove's not a clown either, right? His slow and steady approach has made him the legend that he is. So Rob King should, I guess, get that choice. But I don't know. I think now that Hillgrove goes away, there's only two people left in Pittsburgh sports media and commentating that stand out as anyone that matters because they have a personality. One is Greg Brown and his overwhelming enthusiasm for the Pirates. And the other one, love him or hate him, is Mark Madden. But other than that, Pittsburgh is slowly losing its personality-driven voices, and it desperately needs one. If Rob King is the guy who's going to punch the ticket and move in, great. But I don't think at first glance he gets up there and you go, wow, now there's a guy I need to hear every single day.
Hey, Brian, you're I don't know if it's coming across the air with everybody, but you're real choppy, your quality. So I'm going to ask you to log out and log back in.
All right.
I don't know if it's just on my end or on your end, but why don't you log off and log back on a little bit better here. Again, I don't know if it's just on my end or everybody else is seeing it as well, but we'll get him back on here. So you're watching the oneBURGH 1 week. We just had Scott Blasey up the clip a little bit ago. It's a new album. You can see it right there. Free the hard way, available now. Make sure you check it out on all your streaming devices out there, Spotify, Apple Music, all that good stuff. Had a chance to listen to it this morning. As soon as we get Brian back on, We'll talk more about oneBURGH and oneWEEK and some more subjects that happened this past Pittsburgh and oneBURGH. We're just talking about Bill Hillgrove announcing his retirement yesterday from the Steelers play-by-play guy for about 30 years. And that's a bummer. Brian online with us. Maybe. Can you hear us or see us?
I can hear you and see you.
All right.
Hi, Ed.
Hello, hello. I don't know whose connection it is, but let's just push forward.
All right, cool. Well, anyway, the missing link here with Hillgrove is who will replace a legend, and that's always tough. So it's hard now to look at it when, like you said, was it Jack Fleming? Like Hillgrove replaces Fleming. Fleming had all the gravitas, right? Because he was the guy, and then here comes Hillgrove late. So I guess history can only look back and see if it was a good replacement. But it's really hard present day to replace somebody who means so much. So, Rob King's got some big shoes to fill if it's him.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, like I said, as we go throughout, you mentioned some of the legendary sportscasters in Pittsburgh, and maybe the industry's just changing, but yeah. You mentioned Mark Madden, you mentioned Greg Brown. Those are the two big names really out there that come to mind. For sure.
Well, Ed, why don't we wrap it, man? I'm having a hard time hearing you now as well, or seeing you. So why don't we give it a wrap for the week?
Sounds good, my friend. We'll pick it up next week with hopefully better quality. We'll figure out what's going on.
Yeah, thanks to Scott Blasey, and we'll see you next week here on oneBURGH oneWEEK. Bye, everybody.
So it's online, and somebody just commented. It seems like the issue is on Ed.